Your home is supposed to be a sanctuary, a place where you feel safe. But what if someone was already inside, watching, waiting, and you didn't even know it? I moved into this house 6 months ago. It's small but perfect for me. A quiet neighborhood, friendly neighbors, and plenty of space to breathe. Across the street, there's nothing but woods, and the nearest house is about 200 feet away. My days were simple: work, dinner, a jog around the block, then a shower before bed. I loved the solitude. It gave me a sense of control. Until the day everything spiraled out of it. It started a week ago. After one of my evening jogs, I noticed a white van parked down the street. It wasn't unusual to see cars passing through, but this one stuck out. It wasn't moving, and it didn't belong to anyone I knew. When I walked past it, I felt someone watching me. The driver's seat was occupied, but the windows were tinted too dark to see who was inside. I quickened my pace and locked my door when I got home. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, but I kept peeking through the blinds that night, just in case. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard something strange, a soft scraping noise. It was faint at first, but as I stood still, it got louder. I checked all the doors and windows, but they were locked. The sound seemed to be coming from underneath the house. I brushed it off as an animal, maybe a raccoon or a stray cat, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but think about the van. The next day, I heard the sound again, this time in the middle of the afternoon. It was louder, like something or someone was moving beneath the floor. I decided to investigate. When I stepped outside, I found the crawl space door slightly open. The lock had been snapped clean off. I hesitated before leaning in, the cold air from inside hitting my face. As I shined my flashlight inside, I spotted something that made my stomach drop. A pile of blankets, food wrappers, and empty water bottles. Someone had been living down there. But that wasn't the worst part. On the wooden beams of the crawlspace ceiling, there were fresh saw marks. Someone had been trying to cut their way into my house. I slammed the crawlspace door shut and ran back inside. I locked every door and window, double-checked all the locks, and called the police. As I waited for them to arrive, I peeked through the blinds. The van was back. This time, it was parked directly across the street. I could see the silhouette of someone sitting inside, watching my house. When the police arrived, the van was gone. They searched the crawl space and confirmed what I already knew. Someone had been living there. They found tools, including a handsaw, which matched the marks on the beams. Over the next few days, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing phantom sounds, scraping, tapping, footsteps. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching me, waiting for their chance to return. I had the crawlspace door reinforced, installed cameras, and replaced every lock on the house. The police never found the person or the van, but I know they were planning something. I had the crawlspace door reinforced, installed cameras, and replaced every lock on the house. The police never found the person or the van, but I know they were planning something. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and always keep an eye on what's beneath your home.
Houses in the woods have their own charm. The peace, the isolation, the silence. But sometimes that silence hides something far darker. This is the story of what I found in my basement and why I'll never go back. I had just moved into an old house deep in the woods. It was perfect, quiet, secluded, and exactly what I needed after years of city life. The house had a rustic charm, but like any old home, it came with its quirks. The floors creaked, the wind howled through the trees, and the basement, well, I avoided the basement. It had a heavy, damp smell, and the light barely worked. I figured it was just an old storage space and planned to keep it that way. The first night in the house, I woke up to a noise. It was faint but steady, a soft thumping sound. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, maybe a tree branch swaying in the wind, but then I realized it was coming from below. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses make noises, right? I tried to go back to sleep, but the thumping didn't stop. It almost sounded deliberate, like someone knocking from inside the basement. The next morning, I decided to check it out. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the basement door. The smell hit me first. Damp, musty, with an almost metallic tang. I hesitated, but the logical part of me told me it was just an old, neglected space. I shined the flashlight around. The room was mostly empty, just a few dusty boxes and old tools. But then, in the far corner, I saw it, a strange wooden door built into the wall. It was small, almost hidden, and chained shut. Curiosity got the better of me. Why would someone lock a door in a basement? What could be inside? But as I moved closer, I felt something off. The air felt heavier, colder. I decided to leave it alone, for now. That night, the thumping returned, louder this time. It wasn't just knocking anymore. It was like something was being dragged. My heart raced as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. I finally got up the courage to check. The basement door was open, just a crack. I hadn't left it that way. I grabbed my flashlight and a kitchen knife, just in case, and headed down the stairs. When I reached the bottom, the air was icy cold. The chained door was rattling, as if something on the other side was trying to break free. My flashlight flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw a shadow move under the door. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was behind that door. I reached for the chain, but just as I touched it, I heard a whisper, soft, chilling, and unmistakable. It said, "Don't open it." I froze. In the corner of the basement, where there was nothing before, a figure stood. It was tall, its face obscured by darkness, but its eyes glowed faintly. I ran. I didn't care about the noise or what was behind that door. I slammed the basement door shut, locked it, and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I called a locksmith to seal the basement door permanently. Whatever was down there, I didn't want to know. That same week, I put the house up for sale. Some things are better left unexplored. To this day, I don't know what I heard or saw in that basement, but if you ever find yourself in an old house in the woods and you hear strange noises at night, don't investigate. Some doors are meant to stay closed. What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, some silence hides far more than you think.
I took the job because I needed the money. It was advertised in the paper. Weekend cleaner needed for an old estate. High pay, no experience necessary. I've cleaned plenty of houses before, so I didn't think twice. The mansion was about an hour out of town, isolated, surrounded by thick woods. When I arrived, I felt it immediately, that weight in the air, like the house had been waiting for me. The place was massive, but it was falling apart. Ivy climbed up the walls, and most of the windows were cracked or broken. It was the kind of house that looked like it had secrets. The owner wasn't there to greet me. They'd left instructions in an envelope pinned to the front door. Inside, the note was short and to the point. Clean every room except the attic. Do not, under any circumstances, open the attic door. I laughed when I read that. What could possibly be so bad in an attic that it needed a warning? I shrugged it off and got to work. The inside of the house was worse than the outside. Layers of dust coated everything. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the air was damp and stale. It was clear no one had lived there for years. Still, I wasn't fazed. I'd cleaned worse before. At first, it was normal. Just me, a mop, and the echo of my own footsteps. But then I started noticing things. Little things. A doll sitting in a chair that I could have sworn wasn't there before. Furniture arranged oddly, as if someone had moved it recently. The grandfather clock in the foyer kept ticking, but the hands never moved. I chalked it up to the quirks of an old house and kept going. It wasn't until later that the noises started. I was dusting the shelves in the study when I heard it. A faint creak, like footsteps on old wood. I froze, listening. It was so quiet, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But then it came again. Slow, deliberate. The sound was coming from above me. From the attic. I told myself it was nothing. Probably just the house settling, or maybe an animal. The owner hadn't said anything about pests, but it was an old place. I tried to ignore it and went back to work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That night, as I was finishing up in the dining room, I heard something else. A whisper. It was so soft I couldn't make out the words, but it was there. I stood still, straining to listen. The whispering grew louder, and it sounded like it was coming from the vents. My stomach churned, but I told myself it was just the wind. The next morning, things got worse. When I walked into the hallway, I noticed muddy footprints on the floorboards, fresh ones. They led up the stairs to the attic door. My first thought was that someone else was in the house, maybe a squatter or a thief. But who? The place was miles from anywhere, and I'd locked the front door behind me. I wanted to leave right then and there, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that damn attic door. The owner had warned me, but I couldn't help it. I needed to see what was up there. When I reached the attic, the door was slightly open. I could see a faint light spilling out from inside, flickering like candlelight. My hands were shaking as I pushed the door open. The air inside was freezing, so cold it made my breath fog. The attic was full of old trunks and covered furniture. And then I saw her. At first I thought it was a mannequin, a woman in a long, tattered dress, standing perfectly still in the corner. Her hair was long and matted, and her head was tilted down. I stepped closer, my flashlight trembling in my hand. That's when she moved. Her head snapped up, and I saw her face, pale, hollow eyes, and a mouth that stretched into an unnatural grin. I froze, unable to breathe. She tilted her head to the side as if she were studying me. Then she took a step forward. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I just ran. The attic door slammed shut behind me as I stumbled down the stairs. I could hear her following me, her footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. I don't know how, but I made it to the front door. I threw it open and didn't stop running until I was in my car. As I drove away, I glanced back at the house. She was standing in the attic window, watching me. I'll never forget the way she smiled, as if she knew I'd be back. I haven't gone near that place since, and I never will. But sometimes at night, I dream about her. And when I wake up, I swear I can hear faint whispers in the walls.